Welcome back. Time for our GMC. Sierra Tweet of the Night comes from the Athletic FC, talking about soccer, the other football. And Sidney Crosby, there he is, celebrating with the Canadian soccer team. He's at Copa America as a fan, taking this one in. And Canada and Venezuela went to penalty kicks. Canada knocks off Venezuela. They advance to the semifinal round. Crosby celebrated with the team in the locker room after that. Now, Canada, they're not out of the woods yet. They got another good team coming up. They got Argentina in a couple weeks, so we'll see just how well they're doing when that next matchup comes around. In the meantime, Suzie Cool here with me from KDKA Radio AM 1020 and 100.1 FM. We are taking your phone calls, 412-575-2600. We got Nick in Center Township on the line. Nick, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, I just wanted to talk about the umpiring. You know, I got the Major League Baseball channel, and I watch a lot of baseball this year. And every game I watched is an umpire making bad calls behind the plate. Every game. I'm starting to think it's a conspiracy. I think all the umpires are actually trying to change outcomes of the games. I don't understand. When I was growing up, I never seen it. I never seen this before.
It's kind of strange to see it all really at the same time, Nick, and thank you for the call. And this is one thing I try to remind people. I think a lot of people notice it during Pirate games, and I watch a lot of baseball that's not the Pirates. Maybe that's what makes me different. But I watch a lot of games, Suzie, where it's a problem across MLB. There's two ways I look at it. One, I think there are some issues with as far as that element of the game, because umpires are not going to be perfect. The other side of it, they've got a pretty difficult job. I don't think there are some things you can just pick up all the time consistently with the naked eye, especially when you have pitchers that are throwing triple digits. And you got Paul Skeens who can do it, a couple dozen, 3 dozen times a game if he wants to. And you got these human beings with normal eyes like you and me trying to pick up some of this stuff with the naked eye. Sometimes I wonder how difficult it really could be. But at the same time, it's still a problem, and it's one that they're trying to fix, at least, as you say, in the next couple of years.
Yeah, Josh, you brought up a great point. Everybody's going to make a mistake. Everybody is human, right? And you have to think about this. When you have somebody like Paul Skeens who's throwing over 100 miles per hour, at least almost a quarter to half his pitches every single outing, and then you throw in a pitch like a splinker, which is fairly new to the game of baseball. I mean, when you're a hitter, you get a little bit confused with movement, let alone whenever you're an umpire and then you see something just completely dropping out of the strike zone. Sometimes calls are just going to be mistakes, right? However, that goes back to our discussion in that first segment, the automated ball and strike system, right? That's where this is going to be very, very helpful, and that's why it's being tested in AAA right now, because of those human errors, those human mistakes. Do I want them to completely go away with the human umpire? Absolutely not. I think that is a classic element of the game that you do not want to take away from. However, in order to help them out and to better the calls, that's why the challenge system is implemented. And again, it is really cool for everybody to see.
Yeah, I think there's a point where, in both umpires and also, I think referees in football, officials in football, it's the same thing. And they have a lot they have to try to process with the naked eye as well, as football has become so much of a faster game. I think there's one of those things where there needs to be a meeting in the middle where they say, look, our job is hard, but we also need help. There's nothing wrong with admitting, hey, there's some things that we might not always catch, and trying to find a way to meet in the middle and make things a little bit more accurately and have a better result as opposed to just sticking with the norm. Let's go to Chuck in Uniontown, the legend himself. Chuck, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Thanks, John. Good to talk to you again, Josh, Suzie. Skeens, Keller, Reynolds, do all three of them make it? It seems like the Pirates always seem to get the worst of the controversial calls, and a loss to the Cardinals, that was a killer. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's it. It does feel that way, Chuck. It feels that way at balls and strike counts. It feels that way on plays at the plate. But to answer your first question, as far as Paul Skeens, Brian Reynolds, Mitch Keller making the All-Star game, 2 to 3 weeks ago, Suzie, I would have said it was probably at the very least Mitch Keller. But Brian Reynolds, the tear he's on since May 1st, it's hard to keep him out right now. And Paul Skeens, what he's done in 10 starts, it's hard to keep him out right now. I think I'm flipping my answer. I think at this point, Mitch Keller's the odd man out.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm actually Brian Reynolds and Paul Skeens whenever it comes to making the All-Star games as opposed to Mitch Keller. Not that Mitch Keller has not done great this season. Obviously,
Right.
He has his 48-game streak going on where he's going 5 or plus innings in games. Like, you cannot argue that. However, Paul Skeens is a phenomenon in Major League Baseball right now. That is what people want to see. We discussed that last night. Put him against an American League lineup that's featuring Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Gunnar Henderson. That's going to be electric. People are going to want to tune into that. And then you have Brian Reynolds, who just had the hottest June that he's ever arguably had since, when did he last make it? In 2021?
That sounds accurate.
That seems like he is definitely fighting for a case here right now, especially after his hit streak. So if I have to flip it, it's going to be 2 for 3, Brian Reynolds and Paul Skeens. But hey, if you want to throw Mitch Keller in there too, then we're not going to argue that.
We're going to take one more break here. When we come back, we'll talk more baseball. We got an option maybe to replace Bailey Falter to discuss, and a couple more things before we wrap up. Stick around. Susie, we got a great question from George on Twitter. He said, with Bailey Falter possibly going on the IL with that injury, what about Domingo Germán as an option in AAA?
I think that that's definitely an option, but I think, like I mentioned earlier, the names that I saw really floating around were that of Quinn Priester, Marco Gonzalez getting through their rehab stints and coming up here. And really, if you think about it, there's 10 days before the All-Star break, 8 games left. So they really just have to make it through this kind of next 8-day period. Hope that Jared Jones is off of the 15-day IL by the time the All-Star break is over so that he can be put back into the rotation. And hopefully Bailey Falter just isn't on the 15-day IL. Do I think that that's what's going to happen? No, I do think that he's going to be placed on that. However, you can hope for that. But it's really just navigating these next 8 games, and maybe you're going to have a spot. You're going to have a spot start right now with Jared Jones out. Just, that's going to have to happen. But then you also have to really hope with the spot starts that this team needs going into the All-Star break that your starting pitchers can go the bulk of the innings. So the Pirates are going to have to really rely heavily on Perez right now, on Keller, and Paul Skeens to go the lanes.
You bring up a really good point about the spot start. They may need at least one. Luis Ortiz got one opportunity with a spot start and pitched really, really well. I think he's earned the opportunity to do it again. I think if Bailey Falter goes on the IL, I think Luis Ortiz should be the guy that gets the first crack at it to take Bailey Falter's spot in the rotation. We've already seen him do it once. He pitched well, and he's pitched well in relief too. It's not like this is just a guy that they threw in and he just happened to swim as opposed to sink. He's been getting opportunities in relief, especially as that bulk inning guy when the Pirates are doing those bullpen games, and he was doing pretty well in those outings too. So I think Luis Ortiz is a guy I would like to see have more opportunity to get those spot start opportunities, or maybe even replace a guy like Bailey Falter if he does go on the IL, or if, God forbid, Jared Jones isn't ready to come back after 15 days, so to speak, something along those lines. Also, Domingo Germán, I know he's pitched, I don't think he's been double-digit games, but it's quite a few in AAA. His strikeout numbers look pretty good, but he's walked a bunch of guys. I think his whip was like 1.6 in AAA, so that might be a red flag for now. I think it's one of those things where they might want to see if he can stabilize and make sure he is 100% ready to go in case they need him, because it's a low-risk situation with Domingo Germán. It's not like they have to do anything with him right away. It's not like there's a clock attached to what they can do with him, so they could take their time and really make sure he's ready, but I'm not sure now might be that time, Susie.
I don't think that this is the time right now. And even Derek Shelton said after today's game, he's just happy that he does have the depth that he has at the pitching position. The starting rotation has been what has held this Pirates team together this year. Now, the bullpen has been a little bit of a question mark. However, Luis Ortiz, like you said, has stepped up a couple of times to make these spot starts. So that is, again, another viable option. I definitely think he will make a spot start. And you even have to think about the work that he did whenever Shelton was trying to watch Jared Jones' innings. He put Ortiz in, and Ortiz ate up, 3 or 4 innings in that game. Yep. So he's shown that he can eat up a bulk of a game. However, maybe try and give him a true start, right? Let's see how far he can actually go so you can try and save the bullpen.
One more thing I want to get to. We got about a minute left here. The resurgence of Rowdy Tellez. I know we talked about it yesterday, but he continues to be a guy who's getting more opportunities with what he's doing, and he's starting to turn things around. Are we seeing that redemption tour where maybe Rowdy Tellez is part of the future as opposed to maybe on his way out of town?
I don't want to say maybe we were wrong, but I think maybe we were wrong. Maybe this is the turn of the tides for Rowdy Tellez. I mean, he comes in today, he pinch hits, and he gets a hit today after a two home run game yesterday. So I think we might be seeing a little bit of something, and maybe we put that hope in him at first base now.
I know people like to harp on his batting average. It's above 240, folks, and it didn't take long to get there for him to figure things out. Just want to kind of give you that to think about as we wind down here. We are out of time. Suzie Cool, thanks always. Appreciate her joining us here. For Suzie Cool, for our producer Jeremiah Miller, and our team here at KDKA, I'm Josh Taylor saying thank you for watching. Thanks for your calls. Thanks for your tweets. As I say often, it is you guys that make this show great, and we're here for you 7 nights a week on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, which means we'll be right back here in about 23 and a half hours. So we will see you at that point. In the meantime, make the switch to KDKA News at 11 because we'll be on that side as well. See you later.